Welcome to Three Questions, where critical thinking is king. And my opinions and research are only here to support your learning and understanding. Hey, I'm your host, Meghann, and I'm so honored you clicked on Three Questions today because we have a very, very special guest, the CEO of the Koppele family. Welcome, Gary Koppele, aka my father. Welcome to the podcast, Dad.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Meghann.
Now, Dad, do you know what a podcast is?
I'm learning as we go along.
Okay, so I feel like back in the day, you used to listen to, what was it, Mike and Mike on the radio, Howard Stern. So I feel like podcasts are the new radio talk shows.
Yes, that I did quite often driving around, but a
Especially driving to
podcast, I've
work.
never been participating in a podcast.
Dad, I feel like this might be your first public interview. This is like your introduction to the world. Are you excited?
I'm nervous.
What are you nervous for? Everybody loves you.
Well, but I don't know about the rest of the world.
Yes, who cares about them? It's just you and I here. So,
Got it.
Dad, the podcast, why I started this is I wanted to kind of foster critical thinking and sharing stories and research and helping people kind of come to their own answers because, there's a lot going on in the world. So, I want to start by just asking you one question. And it's something you have instilled in me, my sister, and our families of always putting family first. And as someone who worked quite a bit, despite that, you always put family first. Is that something you learned from someone else? Is that just something you did? Tell me more about that.
Well, the reason I did that was because the family was so great, and I felt the most relaxed and the most comfortable when I was with my family. And it was easy to live it that way. I worked hard, but still, when I got home, I had the larger smile on my face, in a better mood because of my wife and my two daughters. So it was an easy transition for me, and family takes the priority over everything. And we demonstrated that as a family pretty well.
Now, even when I was a pain in the butt, you still had a smile on your face? I
I,
imagine my listeners must wonder what I was like as a child. Do you
well,
want to enlighten
you,
them?
Well, I'll just stick to the high points.
Okay.
You were a great child. You were an overachiever. You were studious. You were funny. You were friendly. You had a great personality. Sometimes you took that too far, and we had some disagreements, but quickly thereafter we kissed and made up because it was easy to do because you've always meant well. But growing up, you always have your challenges. You had some, and I had some, and your mother had some in raising you and your sister, but it all worked out splendidly at the end of the day.
Well, something we kind of joke about, and I share this with a lot of my students, is when we were younger, I often felt, it wasn't really true, but I sometimes felt you were harder on me than you were on Kim. And Kim is my sister, might have said the opposite, that mom was a little tougher on her. And what I've realized is you and I are a lot the same, right? So I think sometimes the things you see in your kids that annoy you or you don't want to be like, you tend to kind of pick on, and you never picked on me, but you and I butted heads a little bit when I was a kid. But as an adult, I love the relationship we have now because I see how much I am like you. Do you
Well,
pick up on that? Would you agree?
I do agree, and I thank you for that. The fact of the matter is, you and your sister spent most of your time with your mother. So she was driving here and driving there, and you had quality time. And I would come in after a long days of work, or on a weekend. And the fact of the matter is, I realized pretty quickly that while we're one happy family, you and your sister were wired differently. She was a little more sneaky. She was a little more introverted. And you, as the younger sister, was pretty much out there. You spoke your piece, you stood your line, and it was something that we got used to and we loved it
Oh, what
because
did you used
yeah,
to say to me? What was the line you used to say? Oh, it was lower it to a dull roar. And I used to like put my finger in my mouth to like lower the volume, and you would just shake your head. Or you would say, "Who writes your stuff?" And I would say, "I do. I write my stuff."
right,
Like, you
right.
were so patient with me as a kid. Like, I even said that to you with Anthony, my nephew and my dad's grandson. He's smart and funny. He's got good timing, like you and I. And sometimes he would say something. I was like, I said to you once, Dad, how did you not smack me more as a child? I always had a little bit of a smart comeback. And I think that's what would get me in trouble. Is that right?
I think that's true. But again, we talked about it. You were wired differently, and we acclimated to that, and you maximized your strengths, and we tried to minimize your weaknesses. You had a few, and that's what upbringing's all about. But the family always stuck together. It wasn't
Yeah.
who's right, it's what's right. And most often you were right, whether I agreed or disagreed.
And something about my dad that is so, I always found so funny. He's like the master of giving nicknames, except he never shortens a nickname. He always makes it longer. But this was one instance where you would shorten it. You would say, it's all about the FU. And people would look at, what? Tell them what the FU is.
Now that's a quiz question.
You
The
don't you
FU,
remember the family unit, you used
the
to say.
family unit, the family unit.
It's hard.
I had to
Listen,
think about that.
my dad has a lot of isms. One of the favorite things that your staff gave you, Dad, is that picture. Do you still have that of all your sayings and they
Yeah,
wrote
it
them
was
out?
when I was 50 years old, which was many, many years ago, for my birthday, I guess. I guess that was the occasion. It was the Garyisms, the 50 most interesting, and they did it beautifully. They
That was
got
an awesome
everything,
gift.
and I'm looking at it, and I said, "Yeah, I said that. I said that. I said that." But in business, it's different. It's more impersonal. Family is much different, but it's true. I had a nickname for everyone. I had a saying for everyone, and it was a way to relate at each of our levels, with tongue in cheek is okay too, because we all had senses of humor, and
Mhm.
you're not seeking perfection, you're seeking love and collaboration as a family unit. That's the FU. So
There it is.
again, there it
And
is again.
yeah, and it's, I wanted to have you and Mom on the podcast for a lot of reasons. Because I think sometimes we don't have these conversations with our parents. We don't ask the questions. So I thought it was kind of important. And you and I have discussions all the time. And, I have so many students and people I work with. And unfortunately, Dad, not everybody has a dad as great as you. So I feel like I already started at third base. I had a head start because I had such great parents that I know we joked about my being spirited, but you and Mom never harnessed my spirit. You always allowed me to be myself and kind of, if I got out of line, would keep me in check. But I'm super grateful for the effort you put in as a dad. I hope you know that.
Well, thank you. Compliments will get you somewhere. But the fact of the matter
Oh,
is,
stop it. Just receive the compliment. Don't make an excuse. That's where I get it from
you and your,
everybody. It's hard to take it a compliment. But let me segue because I know that made you feel uncomfortable. You said something about business where it's less personal. But a lesson I learned from you is if you treat your employees are your best asset. If you treat your people well and manage them well, that is a true business. And Mariska and I call our students the Neuro Studio family. They know that family is the most important thing to me. So if somebody has a kid that's sick, I say, no excuses. You don't need to excuse. Family always comes first. So that's something you always instilled at work as well, which is why your employees gave you such a great gift. They come to your house every year for a barbecue.
right. Well, one hand washes the other. But again, I was very fortunate in business. I had two important jobs for my entire 50-year business career, and you learn on the job. So you get along with people, you delegate and manage. You don't try to manage things, you manage your people and let the people manage the things, because at the end of the day, there are too many things to manage. And you don't have to be the most popular, but you have to
Which you were.
be considerate and work as a team, collaborate, and two, three heads are always better than one. So I learned that early in business. I was a bean counter coming out of high school and college. The only thing I can do, I couldn't sing, I couldn't dance, I couldn't act, but I could add numbers pretty quickly in my head. So I pursued that finance situation, got a couple of breaks along the way. And Meghann, you are eminently successful. So I don't want to run on, but again, we're so proud of you. But the fact of the matter is, if you're passionate about what you're doing, you're very, very good at it. And now, as I'm getting older, I rely on you more than you rely on me, because if I have a health situation, a health question, you're there. You're so knowledgeable, you're so studious and so passionate about what you do, you will succeed. And people who don't succeed as much as you or others is that it's shoulda, coulda, woulda. You get opportunities in your life, you try to maximize those opportunities, maximize your strengths, minimize your weaknesses, and chase your passion, as opposed to being on the sidelines and saying, well, I should have done that and I let it pass me by. You didn't let opportunities pass you by. You'll get
Yeah, but
maybe
you know where
two,
I
three.
learned that from? I learned that from because I see what you're trying to do there. You're trying to flip this around on me. My listeners know me. They want to learn about you, Dad. You and Mom, because Mom also says, hey, I said that. You always said to me, figure out what you love to do and then figure out a way to make a living at it. And you always said,
True.
I was lucky. I loved adding and subtracting. So accounting was a perfect start for you. For me, I liked movement, and you guys were kind of leery of me switching from a history major to exercise science, but you let me do it and you kind of let me figure it out and flounder a little bit, but still were always there to be supportive. So whether you have a parent that gives you advice, you can borrow my dad to take the advice of figure out what you love to do and then work your ass off to figure out how to make some money at it. And it took me a while, but we got here, and I still work at it. And I ask you all the time, does it ever get easier? And you said, not really,
No,
right?
well, I give you all the credit, but again, it always starts with the family. We supported you, we supported your sister, and vice versa. My wife and I are 180 degrees different. She's a great
You'll see that in about in the
homemaker.
next episode.
Right. So again, I brought home the paycheck. We were very fortunate as a family. We were close, and your mother ran around to and really catered to you and your older sister, and that worked out well because she was a perfect role model, and I can pick up what she does well, and Maureen picks up what I do well, and together we were quite successful and the family was quite successful. If you don't have that foundation, you're playing ball with two strikes on you to begin with. So
Yeah.
you didn't have that handicap growing up, and you maximize, as did your sister, in terms of your own being yourself and being successful all on your own. And we didn't have to steer you that much because I think we were pretty good role models
Yeah.
working together as a family. And that's
Yeah.
that's
You
the
guys were
least
always a
common
team.
denominator.
So I was going to ask you, I might get into a fourth question, but I wanted to, let's hop back to business for a sec because you had some really good business role models, Dick Rosenberg. And can you share some of the business insight that he shared with you and helped you be successful, which you just passed down to me? Because, Dad, I love what you're saying about a family, and we are truly blessed. But not everybody has had that. So I want you to be their dad for a minute and share some of that advice that Dick Rosenberg shared with you, if you don't mind.
Well, I was lucky. I worked for Dick Rosenberg, who was the owner, the president, and CEO for a regional supermarket company, very, very successful. And he recruited me from public accounting, and I, again, could add, subtract pretty well. But Dick Rosenberg, very early in my career, taught me about human resources. Treat people the way you want to be treated, collaborate. Two heads are better than one, just running the risk of repeating myself. So,
That's
Dick
okay.
Rosenberg, 50 years ago, in my opinion, now 50 years later, was ahead of his time. Now, everybody talks about HR. Everybody talks about don't discriminate, don't do this, don't do that, don't play favorites. Dick Rosenberg was a people person. He would walk into a supermarket who had 100 employees, and though he was the president and CEO, he talked to them as a friend. He knew everybody's first name, went out of his way. It's a people business. You can't be successful, in my experience, in business if you don't get along with people. Surround yourself with the best people, delegate, manage, treat them well. You have a better chance of being successful for yourself and for the organization at large, if I answered your question,
Oh my
Megan.
God,
I
it was
learned
great.
that.
And I love that. Just I remember that you're like Meghann. He would come down. He knew the guy who worked the meat counter. He knew who was bagging the groceries. He knew everybody's name. And it really, you taught me at kind of a young age that no matter the person driving the bus, picking up the garbage, the CEO, everybody plays a role when you're a good teammate. So it's like being a team in business, being a team in family. So like I'm very, I know you were worried there for a minute. My dad used to always ask me if I was dating somebody because my dad is so happily married that he didn't like that I was single for a while. But I wanted to wait till I met the right person. I felt like I kind of was always trying to fit a round peg in a square hole until I met Brian. Brian, you always said you got to marry for polo, which you can tell me where that comes from. That comes from potential and love. And
Right.
there was just something about Brian where I remember the moment he asked me what I did for a living. We were out at a bar at Leggett's in Manasquan. What do you do for work? Oh, I teach Pilates. There was no follow-up questions. Usually guys would ask more and they're like, oh, and then I would tell them I own my own Pilates studio. So they liked the idea of me. Brian had no follow-up questions. He just weirdly, despite all Meghann, he loves me for me. And I think he brings a calming influence to me. And I think I give him a kick in the butt when he needs it. But I think I really want to wait until I met that person. And my business partner, Mariska, we have been successful business partners for always 12 years. We don't always see to eye, but we communicate really well. So I just feel like those lessons are so good and to wait till they come. How'd you meet mom? Tell everybody.
Uh, a nightclub, or a discotheque back then.
What is a
I've
discotheque?
It's a nightclub. I saw your mother on the dance floor. She was beautiful and she was friendly
She
and she had a
was?
great, yes,
Mom
she
was
was. She
friendly?
had a great sense of, she wouldn't come home with me that night because I
God.
thought, you know, I was a stud, but she put me in my place. So we dated for years. We got married 47 years ago. We haven't looked back since. And again, it goes back to the family. And I know you want to talk business, but
No,
the
no, go.
fact of
You
the
can go back
matter
to the
is,
family.
I'll relate to you. You went to one college, you changed majors, you went to another college. I said, is that a good idea in your second year to change colleges when you weren't even settled in the first place? You had a business in Hoboken, New Jersey, and you had a great location, good advertising program. You worked your you know what off, and you barely made ends meet because there
Ugh,
was a
I
lot
hated
of
that studio.
overhead.
Ugh.
So you went outside the box. You were a risk taker at a very young age. So that's why you're successful. to reiterate, if you don't take risks, look, Thomas Edison, invented the light bulb and 1,500 other things, but he stumbled a number of times. It didn't work, it didn't work, it didn't work, but he was passionate about it. And he was one of the greatest inventors on the planet. And that was you. So you wanted
Well,
to
I wouldn't
expand.
put that's very nice of you to put me and Thomas Edison in the same category. I think you might be confused, sir.
Well, and
But
and
I
just going
appreciate it.
back going back to family,
Now, Dad,
I
imagine if
said,
I never, sorry to interrupt, imagine if I never transferred to Scranton. Look at I found my people. Kate, Cheryl, Mary Beth, Mary, Courtney. God, I hope I'm not did I miss any of the girls? Oh my God, Diana.
Diana,
I mean, could you
Dirty Diana, I should
imagine?
say,
Yeah,
was her
that's
nickname.
Scranton Diana. And then Hot Kate, who still loves when you call her Hot Kate, because now she has 3 kids. So
Right. But
I was able to take risks because I had this weird safety net at home that even if I failed, I knew nobody would love me any less. And it's funny when you say, even the most successful I am at work, nothing makes me feel better than being home with you, Mom, Brian, Patty, and Tom, my in-laws, Anthony and Kaylin. Because Anthony and Kaylin don't give a shit about what I do. Although Kaylin wants to be on the podcast now. Anthony, not interested. They love me despite the fact that I annoy them. So I hope if you're single, wait. If you're married and unhappy, make a switch, because I think everybody deserves to have what Dad and I are talking about right now.
listen,
Right, Dad?
timing's everything in life. And we talk about that. Listen, I met your mother. We dated for a number of years. We got married. We haven't looked
Hold
back
on.
since. You're
How long did you date for?
5 years.
And what did Mum say to you? That's my mom's
You
mother.
right? Do you know he's Jewish, but he's got a lot of potential
No,
because
but
it's
she
a
also,
cat.
didn't she tell you to shit or get off the pot?
She did. She did say that. My mo- my wife's mother. Listen. She raised 7 kids. She raised them beautifully. All kids are thriving. No one's in any trouble in today's society. It's pretty remarkable. She died, unfortunately, at a young age because she worked full time. She was happily married, but it was tough to make ends meet with a family that large, but they made it work. Your sister fell in love in high school
16 years
with
old.
right. So she met her soulmate. They now have 2 children. You met Brian, God bless him, later in life. But timing is everything in life. You get a couple of breaks. You have to chase those dreams. You have to get lucky and then maximize that potential, and don't let it pass you by because you get so many lucky chances. I got lucky because I decided to work for a supermarket company with a great boss who wound up promoting me and then promoting me again because I had my nose to the grindstone. That's luck, but you maximize that, and those who don't miss the boat, in
And
my
I always
opinion.
I say to my clients, stop shoulding yourself. I should do this, I should do, just do it. So this last question, um, I know, um, I'm just gonna shoot from the hip here, Dad. Your parents are no longer with us. I'm asking
Right.
you questions right now. What's one question you wish you could have asked your parents before they passed?
Well, the first thing I would say, my mother passed away in her early 60s. My father lasted another 20 years, and he was a smoker. He was healthy, in great shape, but he smoked and eventually succumbed to lung cancer. So one question I would have asked him is, if you're going, and he didn't like to be alone. Nobody does.
I
So
do.
the one thing I said,
Dad, women like alone time, men don't. Just know.
right. I guess so,
I'm
but
teasing, I'm teasing.
I wouldn't know that. Uh, but in answer to your question, I would have said to my father, make sure, because no one will follow my mother's footsteps. She was the greatest lady in the world. My father married well. I said, if you, and I figured he was going to remarry because he was now an eligible bachelor a couple of years after my mother passed away. And he was in Florida, and some of the elderly women were chasing him around. I said, don't jump at it. Try to find someone like your first wife, if that's entirely possible, and make that choice. And, I'm not sure he listened to me. He did get remarried, passed away a little later. Uh, so that wasn't a great situation, quite frankly, but you deal with it as a family because I wasn't nearly as fond as my stepmother as I was with my mother. And that was something both my brother and I had to understand, support my father, and look the other way, even though we didn't agree. So again, that was an important, you know,
So what was the question? Why the
juncture.
hell did you marry? I won't say her name. The
No,
lady who should.
no,
No, I'm teasing. But like,
I
so
wouldn't.
what question would you wish you could have asked Nanny? Her name Dolores.
Yeah, my mother, why are you working so hard? Because she was the jack of all trades. She's similar to your mother. She had a full-time job, even though we didn't need the money. My father was the controller for a big department store, used to go into New York City, worked very hard, commuted by train to Long Island to New York City 5 days a week, long hours, go to the gym, have sports, like to play
Enough
golf and
about
some other
Grandpa. Let's
things.
talk about Nanny. But I think Nanny
Nanny,
wanted to work, Dad, because she was creative. She was interesting. She wanted to challenge her brain. That probably made her
true.
happy. Don't you think?
That's true. But again, we didn't see enough of her. She was an interior decorator. She worked long hours. She was prideful in what she did. She had a million friends, had a lot of activities. She was a social butterfly. And in answer to your question, I would say, Mom, slow down. Uh, we want to see more of you, my brother and I. But we had our own activities. But she really didn't slow down until she got sick, which was quite unfortunate. In her later years, she could have
Yeah.
enjoyed life, but that didn't quite happen.
Now, I remember Nanny a bit. I remember her a lot from the videos. Am I like Nanny?
You listen. You are because you're a
Personality
successful
wise. No,
businesswoman.
no, but I feel like when you describe her personality, like I feel like is that kind of I feel like do I have her a little bit in me?
You
Or am I
have you listen, you've got the best of your mother and the best of my side of the family also. When you used to visit my mother, who you called Nanny in Florida, and you two were small, she would take out her jewelry, take out her furs, dress you up.
well, she had two
She took out
boys.
her wigs and would dress you up, and my father would be scratching his head, but he and I and my brother were in front of the TV set watching sports, and it probably, allowed her to live for a couple of years when she visited with you and your sister. She never had daughters, and she was just all over you two, showing you off to her friends with each of you in one of her arms because you were
We
two
were
beautiful
very cute
kids.
little kids, Kim and I. We were very
You
cute.
were, you
I
were, and she was not embarrassed to show you off. And again, it's a family thing. It always goes back to the family.
So that I'm so glad I asked you that question because I didn't know that Nanny worked a lot and wasn't around. So it's almost like you took the best of both your parents and made sure you were more present with Kim and I. Not that they did anything wrong, but it was something that you, despite being busy in work, always were present. So good job, Dad.
So if I understand your question,
Oh no, I was just
I work. I
complimenting
work.
you. I was
Oh,
just
thank you.
saying it feels like based off the question you asked Nanny of why are you working so hard,
Right.
you found the balance of working hard but also putting family first. And that's I think something I needed to hear because sometimes I get in the weeds about work, my doctorate, and sometimes I'm not as present in things. So I'm going to take that note, Dad, and I hope everybody else listening's work hard, but be present with their family and the people who care about you. Is that a good way to?
That's a perfect formula for success, Meghann.
All right. Dad, do you have
Yes.
any questions for me?
Any questions for you? Well, no questions. Just thanks for introducing me to a podcast, which is foreign territory with me. You were very kind with your compliments. It's easy to be your father because you're such a great kid, family oriented, which we take some credit for. You are the godmother to our oldest grandson. Is that right? And
Yes.
you go out of your way for Anthony, and
And
he
Kaylin and
appreciates
Lizzie and
it.
Emma. Yeah.
Right. So
I love being an
again,
aunt. My sister and sister-in-law make it easy to do that, but I really feel the best when I'm around them, you know? So
very
this
true.
was
And you
very
do
fun.
it
I
well.
thought you were going to ask me if we can get Squaw Tavern for dinner. I thought that was going to be your question. I
Well,
bribe my dad. He comes in and does Pilates, and then we get dinner as a family together. So I thought the question was going to be dinner related.
no, no, no. Well, we just celebrated Brian's birthday. He brought in pizza, his favorite food, my favorite food. We're cheap dates,
Yeah,
but the Sicilian pizza wasn't as good as what we got in Manasquan.
I know. I
So
know. It's
I'll
new
take
owners.
that rain.
So
I'll
my
take that
dad is
rain check.
from Brooklyn originally, lived on Long Island, so he's a pizza connoisseur and bagel connoisseur. So the Sicilians, what was the Mama Leone's had the best Sicilian pie? Is that the
Mama
name?
Leone's in New York, and my mother, God bless her, they used to put a wad of mozzarella cheese on the table. And if we didn't finish it, my mother would pick it up, wrap it up, and put it in a purse and take it home so we could eat it. So, you can't
Yeah,
do those things.
you don't get free mozzarella at restaurants anymore, Dad,
Not anymore. Yeah, and you can't do that anymore. You'll be arrested.
for
But a
stealing
different
cheese,
generation,
putting cheese in your purse.
yeah, who would do that other than my mother? You know,
Yeah. Well,
but
Dad, thank you so much for taking the time to be on 3 questions.
pleasure.
Um, you did a good job, Dad. You seem a little serious, but I feel like you did
All right,
good, Dad. I think everybody's going to enjoy that.
I take these things to heart. Thank you for having me on your podcast. I'll be better next time, but I'm always good to boast that I'm your father.
Oh, well, I am good to boast that you're my dad. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in today, just to sharing a little insight. I hope you take this opportunity, if your parents are still with you, to ask them some questions. You might be surprised at the answer. Or if your parents are no longer with you, you can still ask them questions, or you can borrow mine anytime. So thanks for tuning in today, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Awesome, Dad. You did good.